So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's exciting to get a chance to talk about Doist for a little bit and answer your questions. I hope if you've been, popping in and out of the job fair today, that you've gotten to meet a lot of great companies, learn some new things, get some good tips, and we're hoping to also do the same and share a little bit about Doist today and a few things that we think are notable and exciting about working at Doist, and then share some tips before we let you ask some questions. But before we dive into all of that, we'll just do a couple of quick introductions here so you know who you're talking to. So I'm Andrew Gabron. I'm one of Doist's people operations generalists. I'm based in Minnesota, and I've been at the company for about 3.5 years now, which is crazy because time definitely, it doesn't feel like I've been at Doist that long, but yeah, time flies, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today as well. Mitch, if you wanna.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mitch. I am Andrew's partner in crime in people operations, and I've been with Doist for a little over a year now, and it's been a spectacular year. I just have, what's interesting is we're both actually based in Minnesota. So here we have this global company, and the two people ops guys are based in Minnesota of all places. So, we're a 45-minute drive away from each other. So we have really great team retreats that are, at the Caribou Coffee in between our house where we live. So, I've loved being here. I'm super excited to meet everyone here and tell you guys a little bit more about Doist.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch. So just a little bit about Doist, just in case you've never heard of us before. Our mission is to create tools that promote a more fulfilling way to work and live. So it's a really meaningful mission to us, really thinking about how we can really improve that quality of life for everyone and invest in ways that help people work and live more productively and meaningfully. We were founded in 2007 by our founder and CEO, Amir, who started our first product as just as a side project out of his college dorm. And up until now, we've been running. We hired our first employee in 2011, and we've been fully remote distributed since then. We're a team of about 90 people based in 33 countries, and we currently have two main products. One is Doist, which many of you have probably heard of before. It's a top-ranked productivity app that helps millions of people organize tasks and projects and in work and life, which is really exciting. It's how I personally discovered Doist before I ended up working here. And then Twist, which is our team communication app, that's really focused on balancing, focused work with collaborative conversations. And it's really catered towards asynchronous communication, which Mitch is going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, so those are our products, a little bit about the company. Yeah, and Mitch, go ahead.
All right, so we decided to talk a little bit about our favorite things about working at Doist. So there's two that I just really want to highlight. The first is asynchronous communication, and Andrew just touched on it a little bit with Twist. So Twist is not only one of our products, but it's how we primarily communicate as a company. In fact, I get very few emails, which means I sometimes fall behind on emails. But luckily, we have a to-do app to help with that. But asynchronous communication is at the heart of what we do, and it's at the heart of our culture as well. It is really what we see as the secret sauce for how we communicate and how we really balance the opportunities that we have to do more deep work. So when you think of things like Slack, and it kind of facilitates and fosters an always on mindset and culture. And so it becomes about reacting. And with Twist and asynchronous communication, it's really about taking time to collect your thoughts, create that deep work, and then present those ideas in a structured way. It really lends itself not only to mindful communication, but in an entirely new way to work, because your time becomes yours. We have someone who on the team who is learning how to paint and is an avid painter. And one of his things is he likes to paint in the morning. So he doesn't have to worry about, the 9 o'clock call that he has to jump in or checking into Slack. Working asynchronously allows us to work at the times that work well for us in our individual lives, as well as making sure that we're advancing some of the work for the organization. So I am a huge advocate of asynchronous communication, and at Doist, it's handled so beautifully. And then the second part that I wanted to touch on why Doist is my other favorite part, and something I have a personal passion for, but that's really professional growth and development. We are really a learning organization at Doist. We understand the skills that everyone has today are fantastic, but we're going to encounter new obstacles as we grow, and we're going to encounter new opportunities through innovation and technology, and we want to be ready for those. And so the thing that we can do today to prepare for that is to get really good at learning. And so we've facilitated employee growth and really put that at the heart of who we are as an organization. There's a couple examples that I just thought would be beneficial to share. The first is we have an entire growth framework where we're actually incentivizing people to get better at their skills. So everyone in the organization has a set of skills that we look for them to grow that's connected to their functional area. So whether it's software engineering or it's people ops for Andrew and I. And we encourage everyone to take those skills and grow them over their course of time at Doist, whether that's through informal learning opportunities like stretch assignments or classes or books or you name it. In fact, everyone gets a personal growth budget that they can leverage throughout the course of the year to grow those skills. Additionally, we share. We have something called personal dues or Doist objectives, but a personal project every of their time to take a professional problem and a personal area where they want to grow in and create a product. So create something that they're passionate about that can ultimately help impact Doist and or our users. And so between that growth framework, the personal projects, and then this growth kind of perk where we actually give every Doister $2,500 every year to spend on their personal development. We've really built that into the Doist experience. So those are two of my favorite things about working at Doist, and things we thought you'd be interested in as well. Andrew now is going to take you over some of the tips for preparing strong applications and what we look for when we're looking for new Doisters.
Yeah, so I mean, this is probably the biggest type of question we get from prospective candidates. Like, how do I actually get into the process? How do I land a role at Doist? And I'm hoping to cover some tips that apply both to Doist, but also generally that I hope you'll find useful anytime you're applying for a job, whether it's remote or not, and that you can kind of keep in your back pocket, for the future. So the first thing seems pretty simple, but make sure you do your research when you're looking at a company that you're thinking about applying for. Check out their website, check out their socials. If they have a blog, take a look at it. Really get to know the company before you apply, because first of all, once you do your research, you might realize, like, you know what, that's probably, this is a cool company, but I don't think I can see myself working here, which is a good thing to figure out before you invest all that time into applying and going through the process and that sort of thing. However, if you do, decide, okay, this is great, I want to apply here, you'll have so many good nuggets of specific ideas to kind of tie into your application to really show that you want to work at that company. So, really take the time to do that. I know it can be tedious if you're applying for a lot of jobs, but it makes a huge difference, and it can really make you stand out as a candidate when When you're in our position reading hundreds of applications, those specifics really do stand out then. Another thing to really think about is communicating a clear and meaningful why for applying. So thinking about, why do you want to work at Doist, or why do you want to work at X company? Something that's a bit more deep than I want to work from home, or I want a remote job. I think most of us have gotten to have that experience in some form over the past year. So digging a bit deeper into why it is that you want to work at that company, and that can really be tied to their mission, to their values, the industry that they're working on, or the type of problem they're trying to solve. So really figuring out what that is and why it's meaningful to you is an important thing, both for yourself and just for communicating, your motivation there. Focusing on quality over quantity. I can't tell you how many times we've received applications where the candidate submits a CV or a resume that's 10 pages long with everything they've ever done since they were born, and they write their responses to the application questions, or or they submit a cover letter, and it's like, it's longer than my graduate thesis, and I can't keep up or figure out what they're talking about. So at face value, it might seem like, okay, the more information I can share, the better, because then, this company will be able to really get to know me, which seems logical, but in practice, it makes it very difficult for people on our end to really understand what you bring to the table. So really focus on teasing out those really special things about you, and the special parts about your experience and skills that you can really focus on to kind of make the pitch and argument for why you'd be a great person to join Doist or another company. And the last thing is, when possible, don't just talk about your skills, but try to show them. So whether that is in the form of a portfolio, or maybe it's a GitHub repository if you're a developer, any way that you can show your skills in action. Or, and it doesn't have to be specifically work. It could be just a side project you've worked on, or something you've done on the side that, reflects what you can do. And these things really help, provide additional detail and context to your application. So that's just a little bit, just a number of general things that can really make you stand out. And keep in mind, at the end of the day, and I always try to tell candidates this because I think it's easy to forget, but anytime you're applying for a job, you're probably one of hundreds of candidates. So if you don't, if you don't move forward in the process, don't take it personally, because it really ends up being kind of a numbers game. Like, the odds of, moving forward are always so slim, but the more you can do to really personalize your application and really show that you've invested that time and effort into, into really pitching, your skills and why you should join the company, can really make you stand out amongst, all of those candidates. So that's all I have. And Mitch, I don't know if you have any other tips that come to mind, but if not, I think we can open it up to general questions.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, and you touched on it, is just that authenticity, right? To be yourself. I think that's easy. It's easy to get lost sometimes in trying to customize your job, your resume to a job description, and then it turns out that maybe that's not actually what you want to be doing. Just be authentic and be yourself, I think, is really the key thing, because that's really what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, let's see if we have any questions. So Jessica asks, said, our website doesn't have any open roles right now. Yes, that is true, which is very ironic because we're at a job fair. How often do roles open up, and are there any developer positions on the horizon? So we, as it so happens, we hit most of our hiring goals for the first half of the year before the job fair, which is unfortunate because I was hoping we would have something open by now, but we still are in the process of planning for the second half of the year and finalizing those plans. So I imagine within the next couple of months, you'll start to see more jobs popping up on the on our careers page. And if not, there's actually a way for you to sign up right now to receive updates via email when jobs do get posted. So you can select your domain or the type of role you're looking for. And then when we do post a role related to that, you'll get an email just letting you know that something is there. As far as developer positions specifically, there might be one or two, but we still haven't finalized the plan yet. So I don't want to raise your hopes too much upfront. Otherwise, next year, of course, there will likely be more developer roles. Let's see. So we have another question. It says, why is Doist so passionate about asynchronous communication? And what led Doist to advocating for it? It's a great question. Mitch, do you want to take that? Or do you want me to?
So I think no, I'd be happy to, because that's part of what jazzes me. So I think there's a couple things that factor into that. The first is, I think we acknowledge the need for both asynchronous communication as well as synchronous communication. We just default first to asynchronous, where I think some other companies default to synchronous. Let's have a meeting about it. Let's do a series of Slack exchanges about it. We default to a more deep work approach where we try to remove focus on just moving information and really focus on deep work and going mindful into what you're trying to achieve and what you really want to communicate. And it's really interesting because it takes sometimes more work to be asynchronous, because you have to put thought into it and you have to be intentional about it, as opposed to just moving information kind of around. And the lack of real time, or the priority on asynchronous communication, does free up employees to work in an entirely different way. For me, I work much better in the morning versus some people who work best late at night. And because we're an asynchronous first company, I don't expect a response to my question or to my exchange immediately. I expect us to discuss it at some point over the course of the next few days. And so while it does slow down in theory, or at least in perception, it slows down how quickly you can communicate. Your productivity goes through the roof, because you're communicating much more intentionally and much more mindfully, and you're able to move work through actually quicker and create a better sense of collaboration, because you're responding to and engaging with fully formed ideas, as opposed to kind of half-baked, quick, I gotta tell you what I think of that in the moment, as opposed to being thoughtful about it. So we believe it's transformational. We believe it's the future of work, and I personally, it's one of the many things I fell in love with Doist.
Yeah, and
next up, it looks like Jill. Oh, go ahead.
One other thing I wanted to add. So the last part of the question about what led Doist to advocating for it, it actually happened kind of on accident at the beginning. So our first employee that our founder hired, he needed someone to help him manage support emails. So he went on, just an online marketplace for virtual supporters, and hired someone there, and they were based in Poland, and I think he was in Chile at the time, and we were asynchronous, and we just continued from there. So kind of funny, but it's stuck with us since then, and I don't think we could ever see ourselves doing it another way. So, Mitch, you were gonna tackle another
Yeah,
one?
I was just going to go on to Jill's question. Thank you for touching on that, because that is awesome, and one of my favorite stories about the second employee. Do you use Agile Scrum Masters or product owners? We use a hybrid, kind of our own system called the Do system, which kind of steals from Agile, steals from product owners, steals a little bit from lean methodologies. But basically, it's our internal system for how we get work done. There's actually, if you check out our blog, Ambition and Balance, there's a couple really good articles that go really in depth into how we coordinate our work around squads and make sure that we have kind of cross-functional representation as we move work through. And our system is really about enabling anybody to pick up work and be able to move it forward. So not just those who are, in a position to do so, but really having a team come together. So if you want more detail about the Do system, I strongly encourage checking out Ambition and Balance on our website. Oh, Andrew linked right there. Smooth.
Yeah, just right when you said it, I was like, I'm gonna get that link.
I know, that's
awesome. All right, what else do we have? Alexis asks, what are some examples of things that really stood out to you in any recent Doist job application that you've seen or read? Ooh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to remember specifics, but I can definitely tell you the applications that always stand out to me are ones where people kind of go above and beyond. First of all, they're authentic. They have a very meaningful motivation for applying that really shines through in their application. So it's, usually connected to, maybe experiences that they've had in the past, or a vision that they have for their career, or the impact that they want to have, and how they see themselves, being able to do that at Doist. In other ways, people have done creative things like, in addition to their application, they've kind of recorded a video and shared it, which is always a fun touch. What else? Sharing really unique projects. Like, I mean, we've had people design projects that are very related to the role they're applying for, that are specific for the application. So, naturally, some people go like really above and beyond, and sometimes it's just a matter of, someone who really, you feel like they really pour their heart out into the application, and have taken the time and care to really refine, their message and what they're trying to communicate through that application. So it's a variety of things. Mitch, I don't know if you've seen anything specific that has stood out to you.
No, I think it's hard to capture, but it's like the passion. I think that just kind of comes through, and I know that's not really like a tangible answer, but it's really easy to see that when people have that, either about the product or the company, or how it's changed their lives even sometimes. So I think it's just really that authenticity, exactly like you said.
Let's see, so many questions. It's hard to.
That's awesome. It looks like the next one is, Doist mentioned side projects on repositories. How complex or detailed could be, like when you're applying and showcasing projects that you're going to commercialize? You certainly could. I think the intent behind seeing some of those projects, particularly as part of the interview process, is to show your skills. I think it's one thing, and let's be real, everybody does it. You got to sell yourself a little bit when you're applying for a job, but the more tangible demonstration of the work that you actually do, that you can bring to those conversations, really, really helps. So, complexity can be great sometimes to show, your breadth of skills and all the different pieces you can do. Also, simplicity can also be equally as great, because it shows that you're able to kind of refine the thinking down to what the core need is. So I think as you're thinking about different things to showcase your skills, I would say there's no wrong way to do that. It's really about being able to just have some additional resources that can help demonstrate the success that you've had, or the way you think, and the skills that you've got. So I don't know, Andrew, if you've got a different answer than that, but I don't think there's really a wrong way to go about going about demonstrating some of those examples.
Yeah, I think it's whatever you have that obviously something that you're proud of, first of all. I think it's, you want to share something that, you feel represents you and the quality of your work. But yeah, beyond that, I think, as long as it's something that you feel represents you, it's always, it's always exciting for us to be able to see like what that looks like for you, and and how that skill set might end up translating into Doist. It's a great question. Let's see. How many roles do you typically plan for when you're talent planning? That's hard to say. I mean, it really depends on, on the budget for the year, on the hiring needs, because, one of the things that's unique to Doist, I think, is that we hire pretty conservatively. We're not really set on, hiring as many people as possible. So, every year when we're planning our hiring needs, we're really thinking about, like, what do we actually need this year in order to, continue moving towards or to accomplish our goals for the year, or where are our, pain points or problem points that, can only be solved by hiring someone to really fill that need. So, there isn't really a way to, to predict that from year to year. So, Mitch, I don't know if you have another perspective.
No,
on
I think
that.
I think it does. It depends on growth, but I think just ballpark. I think in the first half of this year, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 8 positions open, 9 positions open. Was it somewhere like that?
Yeah.
Close to that. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah, typically we look at it in 6-month sprints and say, what are we going to need, and then move from there.
Yeah, and as an example, like, it fluctuates from year to year. So last year, I think we hired around 20 to 25 people, which was a heavy hiring year for us. The year I joined, I think that was 2018. I think we hired maybe 15 people. This year will probably be around 15-ish to 20 as well. So yeah, it fluctuates from year to year. Yeah.
Next question is specific to HR, which are our favorites. But is asynchronous communication realistic, doable when you're in an HR role? Heck yes, it is, and I think we do it awesome. High five, Andrew. But no, I think it is. I think as long as there's a culture of it, and I think that's the big challenge, where even for time sensitive things and employee relations type issues, we're still responding in a very short order. But I think the intentionality that goes with the communication absolutely applies to HR's work as well. And I think in terms of, people shifting roles or transitioning roles, really taking the time to think through that intentionally and writing out the plan for that can really help smooth that process over for employees and leaders. So yeah, it's definitely possible, and I think it's not only doable within HR but across organizations as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to, I think this is a great opportunity to kind of identify or acknowledge how async and sync communication kind of work hand in hand, because for example, Mitch and I have a weekly touch base, weekly one-on-one to check in on each other, to talk about anything that has happened over the past week, anything that's coming up. So I think, combining that with kind of the more async work, that goes on throughout the week, works out really well. So a lot of times, the one meeting that Mitch and I have during the week is our Monday morning meeting. And then unless there's something else that, needs its own dedicated meeting, we're just in communication over DMs and in threads, just based on where we're needed. So yeah, I think it's a great setup, and, especially when things can get very stressful in HR and people type of roles, it's a great way to really, provide some balance to allow you to kind of pace yourself and and keep your head on straight as you're working through different projects. So, yeah. Let's see. What else do we have here? So I think this wasn't posed in a question, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be asking the right question, but if not, we're going to answer it anyway. Does the company promote employee mental health? Absolutely. Mental health is, a huge deal when it comes to remote work. I think, if you've ever read about challenges that can come with remote work, isolation is a big one. Especially over this past year, I think with the way the state of the world, I think that's been an even bigger challenge. So, making sure that we're taking care of the team's mental health and just generally making sure that we're checking in on each other is a huge thing. So, all of our managers are, check in regularly with their team. We kind of have an open culture where people are, welcome to share with someone they trust or with us in people ops if they're struggling with anything, and things like that have come up, and it's great that we're able to have those open conversations. We also have a work and wellness budget that everyone has on a monthly basis, and that is something that they're able to use towards things that support their health in general, but also mental health if they want to spend it on anything related to that. So yeah, it's a lot of different things, and but yes, it's such an important thing, and we've also had this ongoing mental health initiative where we try to just share general, educating the team about different topics related to mental health. And we've covered a wide variety of topics that really help open up a discussion about, those oftentimes kind of, unacknowledged challenges that many of us can deal with and, maybe haven't dealt with, but could in the future. And I think, starting with that knowledge and education and open conversation, it normalizes those topics, and it really helps set us up for, to reinforce that trust among the team when challenges do come up. Yeah. So that's a good question if I answered the right question there.
Awesome. I can handle Jill's questions. Or Jill's question about upcoming challenges for Doist. So I think I'll be straight. One of the challenges we have is culture, right? So this is an organization that's asynchronous first, and I've been employed for over a year now, and Andrew is the only employee that I've actually ever met in person. And so normally we come together on an annual basis to do a full-blown retreat, and we have team retreats. But I think with COVID, that's been a real challenge for us, is how do we sustain this fantastic culture that's been built as an organization, particularly as we welcome people in. And we have asynchronous communication to be able to do that, but we also know the importance of synchronous communication and in-person communication as well. So that's one of the challenges. I think also, we're on a mission to change the future of work. And so I think we have a lot of opportunity that I wouldn't necessarily call a challenge, but I think we take it as a challenge to help people understand how asynchronous communication can transform how they work, how products like Twist and Todoist can really not only contribute to productivity, but contribute to overall wellness of yourself and how you engage with work. So those are some of the challenges. And then, of course, advancing the product. And that is a super fun challenge to get behind. It's so cool to see some of the feature functionality improve and just the dynamics behind the product change as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Mitch. And thank you, Jill. Let's see. Mara asks, do you process resumes via ATS system? That's applicant tracking system. And do you have any tips for getting through machines? That's a good question. So we do use an applicant tracking system. We use Workable if you're familiar with the different tools that are out there. However, we actually don't use like their processing system. We actually read every single application like word for word. So when you send your application in, at least at Doist, rest assured that a real live person is reading your application. And if it is being, and if you do get declined up front, it did see the light of day and a real person did actually, read it and make that decision. So yeah, I mean, and of course, I'm sure there are companies that, maybe use some sort of filtering system. I'm willing to bet that at most similar companies to Doist, they're probably not doing that, because culture is so important to us that we're not leaving it to machines to decide for us. We're really, we really do want to, take the time to read your application, first of all, because, you've probably spent a lot of time, refining that yourself. So, I see that as like the bare minimum that we can do is actually to read your application and consider it. If you are applying at a big company where they might be using a filtering system, I know, a lot of times people talk about keywording. So really, looking at the job ad and taking note of like key skills or anything that is important to that role, and making sure that you're kind of tying it into your resume or your application in some way. But at least at Doist, you don't have to worry about any of that. So hopefully that's that's a reassurance. Mitch,
I do have a straight up tip though, because I think Mara referenced also to like applicant tracking systems not being able to work too well on like 2-column layouts or resumes that have multiple layouts. If you have one of those resumes that looks different and it doesn't always process all the information in there when you're doing the application, sometimes they'll go through a parsing exercise when you apply to move your experience into the right fields and everything. Keep 2 copies of your resume, one that you upload and then like a plain text version. And when you first apply to the job, use the plain text version. That'll populate experience and everything, and then you can upload the one that's desktop published a little bit more, or with a design a little bit more. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Michelle asked, you mentioned cross-functional squads besides developers. What other kind of roles do you employ? Yep, we've got design, we've got content creation, we've got people ops. We have support roles. So we have a big support team that's focused on user success. We have product and product growth roles, engineering, obviously. Andrew, what else am I missing here, man?
Finance. We have an infrastructure team now. We're forming a product team, which is exciting. Yeah, a lot of everything, anything you can imagine, basically. Yeah. And actually, if you go to our website and check out the teams page, you can filter by team, and see, you can first of all see people's faces, which is always fun, and it shows you kind of the breakdown of the different domains within the company. So you might enjoy checking that out. Yeah. Let's see. How do you onboard new employees with async communication? I have so many questions at the start of a new job. How are new employees supported in async environments where they may be waiting for answers? That is a great question. So we do a lot of different things, and I think you called out a very big challenge, which is how do you support someone when you're in an async first culture? So up front, we actually set everyone up with a mentor who is their go-to person. So once they start, they're going to work closely with that person to get used to to do some on-the-job training, to troubleshoot whenever they have questions or they're not sure what they're doing or what they should be doing. Along with that, we also have we've been refining and building up this onboarding project that's built into Todoist. So that's kind of their onboarding checklist, and it's full of tons of stuff. So it sets them up with tasks that they're going to do early on, like setting up accounts, reading important documents, getting into the company handbook to learn about different processes and different things. They'll have some team specific tasks related to their role or their their function, and then just different housekeeping tasks. And within all of those, we kind of add different comments and walkthroughs. So it almost feels like you're kind of getting a tour, and you're kind of getting that support as you're going. And fortunately, we've gotten tons of positive feedback about that over the years. And people have said, like, this really feels like, someone is walking me through all of these different tasks, even though, I'm like online on my own when I start my day. But that also kind of, despite what it may seem, the async setup actually works really well for a lot of people, especially when you think about, when you're starting a new job, and, if you think about like a traditional, there might be a lot of pressure up front to socialize with people, and to, you're getting thrown around from meeting to meeting, and like introduction to introduction, and can be kind of stressful for some people up front. And the way the async setup works is that you're able to get some of that social interaction. So, early on, you meet with your mentor, you meet with your manager. Mitch and I also try to meet with people early on, and I know Amir, our CEO, also tries to do, some introductory calls with them. But then you don't have that pressure to meet all 90 people, in your first week. So it gives you a chance to just ease into things. Like if you want to just lay low and do some reading, work on some tasks early on, you can do that. And if you do want to dive in and schedule one-on-ones with every person in the company, then you could also do that if you like. But it removes a lot of pressure, which I think a lot of people appreciate. So, Mitch, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think one, it's awkward. So all right, I was a new employee onboarded Async, and I was like, oh, so it's my first day. Like, okay, now what? Like, so there's a little bit of awkwardness, but once you get into it, Andrew has done a masterful job, and I think the key is about having a structured plan that people can walk themselves through. And also, one of the beauty parts of asynchronous communication is that everything is archived and available. And so those questions, those million questions that all new employees have, myself included, when we started, it's about doing a quick search sometimes. And not only do you get to see the answer to your question, but you get to see the historical context of what led everybody, the thinking behind it, and the mindful communication behind it that led to that outcome. So having those two things actually makes it really, really streamlined. Looks like Ellen had a question about career progression framework, and in general, what does it look like? We actually just introduced our career progression framework last year, called Growing at Doist. One of our values is mastery, and the idea that we are all here to get better, both at our functional areas, but get better overall. And so we really put that to work in our career progression framework. So where most frameworks are focused on moving from like a senior to a principal to a director, a managing director, our framework is focused on growth of your skills, getting better at your functional area. So if you're a designer, we want you to learn and apply new skills in design that are going to both accelerate yourself as well as accelerate Doist. And so when you apply those at Doist and you learn, we actually have an entire framework that helps demonstrate your growth and then helps compensate you, quite honestly, for that growth as well. Each department, each role, for lack of a better term, has their own framework and their kind of own staging for it. And so we definitely have one, and it's focused primarily on growth and mastery. I'm going to leave that answer there because I think we're running short on time, and see if we can get to the next ones. But Ellen, if you've got additional questions, Andrew will tell you I love to talk about that for as long as the day will let me. So we can connect offline.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do we have? Besides being So Laranda asks, besides being enthusiastic about Doist, do you have any recommendations on how to get hiring managers' attention? That's a tough question. I mean, I think persistence definitely has its role. So I would say be persistent. Like if you don't make it through the first time, keep trying. I mean, we've had, one of the nice things about our applicant tracking system is it shows us, when people have applied in the past. So we're able to go in and see, we just hired someone recently who has applied 3 times over the past 5 or so years. So it's really exciting to see, that, that progression. And, and I know in the past when they've applied, we didn't have a specific need, or maybe they didn't make it through in that particular role. But I think persistence makes the biggest difference. And knowing that, as long as you're, as long as you're authentic, again, I know that's, we keep coming back to that, but it just plays such a big role. But being authentic in the way you're presenting yourself, and making sure that it's not in a spammy or annoying way, because I know some people also are so excited about joining Doist or maybe another company that they they start to get to the point where, okay, they're spamming people on Twitter and sending a lot of emails, and which of course I understand, sitting on my end, in my position of privilege and power, having the role that I have, to that people really just want to be seen. But making sure that that you're doing that in an authentic way, that that still shows your enthusiasm, but doesn't come off as as immature, or or just kind of desperate, for lack of a better way to describe things. I hope that's helpful. Mitch, do you have any additional tips around getting hiring managers' attention?
No, I love the idea of not giving up. So I'm a Doist fanboy, I guess is the right term. I think for several years, and I kept just checking the jobs page to see when their people ops guy Andrew was gonna win the lottery, so they would have another opening that I could apply for. And so I just encourage to keep checking, and if you've applied and it doesn't work, keep having those conversations, and I think keep reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
Next question: can we speak to the design and UX teams? Yeah, I can do my best to speak to the design team. So our design team is about 7 people now, 8 people now, and it's comprised of traditional UX designers, as well as illustration, overall brand design, and then product design. And the team is obviously incredibly talented, and so fun to work with. Anna is our head of design, and I think one thing that I really appreciate about our design team is that it's really deeply integrated into everything that we do. So Andrew and I, even as we do, publishing updates to our handbook, we're getting feedback on how we can make the content read a little bit better, or the layout more improved, so that employees and Doisters, as they review it, can get to the information they need. So we take design really, really to heart, and it's definitely integrated into everything that we do. What we're looking for in terms of good company fit, I go back to our values: mastery, impact, focus on independence, and I think finding a fit at Doist is about finding a fit for Doist overall, and then being able to leverage your skills and bring those to bear for all of us and our users.
How are we doing on time? I think. Do we have time for one more?
I think we got time for one more.
Yeah, we can do it.
We'll just
see.
We'll just keep talking until Justine tells us to not.
Yeah, until they cut us off. Let's see. All right, Nick asks, how do you incorporate ideas around diversity and inclusion in Doist as both company and culture? it's a great question, and definitely something that, you know, I think has been brought to the forefront over the past year. And it's something that, to be completely honest, we've just started really digging into. You know, we've always valued diversity at Doist, but this year we've really been challenging the team to think about diversity in a broader sense. So a lot of times we think about it in terms of, you know, like how many countries we're coming from as a company. And it's exciting because we have, you know, representation in 33 plus countries, but really getting into those details of, okay, well, diversity is more than that, right? So this year we've really been focused. We did our first diversity and inclusion survey this year, which was really, you know, really eye-opening for us as a team, just in terms of seeing our, you know, the layout of our company, realizing that we're diverse in a lot of ways we didn't realize before, and also realizing that we have a lot of work to do as well, to you know, to continue having building a team that represents the diversity that we, you know, that we see in our user base, that we see around, as a company that is borderless, that wants to welcome, you know, anyone from anywhere, you know, with all kinds of abilities and identities. So you know, it's a huge undertaking, but something that we've, you know, I feel like we've just started our journey on this year, and really, you know, starting to figure out what those goals look like for us, and where we go from there. So yeah, I think it's kind of a stay tuned for more as we, you know, as we continue learning, you know, where we're headed with that. What else do we have? How helpful are tools like Codility, HackerRank, Code, in grooming your would-be developers in the real job situation? That's Mitch, do you have any any input on that?
I don't. In fact, I don't know that our hiring managers reference those, but you would have maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you know, of course, for us, the biggest thing that we look for is, you know, we're looking for people who are continuous learners, right? You're not, you know, and we don't really care where you gain those skills and where you learn, whether it's, you know, in a university setting, whether you're self-taught. We have people who represent both fronts, you know, people who have master's degrees in their domain, and some who were completely self-taught, or, you know, took courses online and developed those skills over time, and both thrive, and you know, and are excellent in their own right. So I mean, I would say, like, if that is, you know, if one of those tools helps you develop your skills, then that's great. You should go for it. You know, at the end of the day, when we're looking at applications, we want to see, you know, we're looking at what we see on that application. So, you know, we're looking at the, you know, how experienced you are in working with the, you know, as a developer, what type of challenges you've worked through in the past, and whether you're prepared to kind of take on what we have at Doist. So, yeah, so I think, you know, whatever feels right for you to develop, you know, to develop your skills from where you're at, I think is worth taking.
Last question, it looks like. Do we accept general applications? If you don't be a fit for a particular role, would your resume be held for future? We used to take general applications, but right now we don't have a general application link up there. I think we've had mixed reviews on that, or mixed process behind that. And so right now we did take the general application down, but I would say definitely keep checking the website, sign up for the notification. Andrew mentioned that at the beginning of the breakout, so that you're notified when we post new jobs. Yeah, I think that's the best way to stay connected.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you can also always, if you really want to send something our way, you can email us at careers@doist.com. I will send you a kind thank you, but we don't have anything available right now. Just so you know, like, it's not a rejection. It's just, stay tuned for, for the role that's coming up. But yeah, I would say, we don't create roles out of nowhere. So, if we have a need and it's available, then you'll find it listed on our website. Like, that's always the best place to look. If you're curious what we have available at the moment. So yeah, I think that brings us to time, right? Yeah. So thank you again for everyone. I think we had 60 plus people join at some point, which is really awesome. Thank you for joining us. I hope this was helpful. It was great to get a chance to share some of what we love about Doist and some tips, and to also get your questions. And I hope this was helpful. And if you ever have any more questions, I think there's still time to send them our way in our booth in the Expo tab. Otherwise, you're always welcome to email us at careers@doist.com, or tweet at us, or send us a message on LinkedIn. People find us anyway, so feel free
Smoke
to reach out again.
screen, carrier
Yeah,
pigeons,
send
whatever.
a letter. Yeah, whatever you like. We will get back to you one way or another. So yeah, thank you again. This was wonderful. And enjoy the rest of the job fair.